I stood outside the conference room, hearing applause thunder through the glass walls. My hands trembled as I watched Victoria Sterling accept congratulations for her brilliant innovation. The productivity app I'd spent 2 years developing in my spare time. Incredible presentation, Victoria, our CEO gushed. TaskFlow will revolutionize how teams manage projects. TaskFlow. Even the name was mine. I pressed my back against the wall, fighting nausea. 6 months ago, I trusted Victoria with my prototype during our late-night brainstorming sessions. She'd called it interesting but incomplete, and suggested I develop the concept further. Now she stood in that boardroom, wearing a designer suit and claiming credit for every line of code, every user interface design, every innovative feature I'd created during weekends and lunch breaks. My computer science degree had taught me to document everything meticulously. Victoria thought she'd won by stealing from a quiet developer who wouldn't fight back. She was about to learn how wrong she was. If you like our revenge stories, please subscribe for more. We drop powerful news stories every week, filled with truth, emotion, and justice. Don't miss the next one. And remember, some stories hurt, but they heal too. Subscribe now, and join the journey. People at Pinnacle Tech saw me as the reserved programmer who kept to herself. I showed up, did excellent work, and left on time to work on personal projects. While others gossiped around the coffee machine, I reviewed code and attended online coding boot camps. Victoria Sterling was my opposite. Loud, charismatic, politically savvy. She networked at company parties while I studied new programming languages. She pitched ideas in meetings while I documented everything meticulously in my development journals. Jamie's so serious. I'd overheard her tell colleagues. Some people are great at coding, but they're not really business-minded thinkers. Business-minded thinking, like the adaptive workflow system I designed after watching teams struggle with project management. Like the time-tracking features I'd coded to solve productivity issues. Like the collaboration tools I'd created because I understood workplace inefficiencies. Victoria had never written a line of original code, but she was about to learn that documentation beats deception every time. I kept detailed records of everything, including our conversations. The revelation hit during Victoria's second presentation to investors. I sat in the back row, watching her demonstrate features I'd built with my own hands. She clicked through screens I'd designed, explained algorithms I'd coded, and presented market research I'd conducted among small business owners. The inspiration came from my deep understanding of workplace productivity. She lied smoothly to a room full of venture capitalists. I recognized inefficiencies in current systems and developed targeted solutions. My notebook sat in my lap, filled with 2 years of development notes, sketches, and code samples. Every innovation she claimed had originated in my apartment, during weekend coding sessions and late-night problem-solving marathons. The investors ate it up. Brilliant market insight, one said. When can we see a working prototype? Next month, Victoria promised confidently. We're in final testing phases. Final testing. She didn't even know how the database functioned. But she had my complete source code, stolen during those collaborative sessions where I'd foolishly shared my work. My programming training had taught me patience and systematic thinking. I would document everything and wait for the perfect moment. If you like our revenge stories, please subscribe for more. We drop powerful news stories every week, filled with truth, emotion, and justice. Don't miss the next one. And remember, some stories hurt, but they heal too. Subscribe now and join the journey. That evening, I opened my laptop and began operation documentation. My computer science background had taught me that successful debugging required thorough preparation and bulletproof evidence. I compiled screenshots of my original code, dated and timestamped. Email drafts showed my app concepts from 18 months ago, long before Victoria claimed her inspiration. My GitHub repository contained version histories proving I'd built every feature she was presenting. More importantly, I had our Slack conversations where she dismissed my ideas as too complex and technically ambitious. Her own words would become the rope to hang her credibility. The smoking gun was a screen recording I'd made during development. I demonstrated the working prototype to my friend Alex, discussing how it could help freelancers and small teams. The timestamp showed I'd had a functional app 6 months before Victoria's first presentation. I organized everything into folders: evidence, timeline, code samples, communication records. Victoria might have stolen my code, but she couldn't steal my systematic approach to problem solving. This was intellectual warfare, and I intended to win. 3 weeks later, Victoria's smiling face appeared on the company newsletter's front page. Congratulations to Victoria Sterling for securing $2.5 million in seed funding for TaskFlow. My hands clenched as I read the article. She'd convinced investors to fund my stolen innovation, positioning herself as a visionary entrepreneur who understood workplace productivity better than actual developers. Victoria's market research and technical vision really shine through, quoted Harrison Blake, the lead investor. Her background in project management makes this a sure success. Background in project management. She'd been a marketing coordinator for 2 years before moving to business development. She'd never managed a technical project in her life. Coworkers gathered around Victoria's desk, congratulating her on the life-changing opportunity. She basked in the attention, promising to hire team members from Pinnacle Tech for her new startup. "Jamie," she called out, spotting me near the printer. "I'll definitely need experienced developers for TaskFlow. Interested in joining my team?" The audacity was breathtaking. She wanted to hire me to build the app I'd already created, using the money she'd earned by stealing my idea. "I'll consider it," I replied neutrally, my mind already calculating revenge. Victoria left Pinnacle Tech with great fanfare, taking 3 junior developers and the company's blessing. She rented office space downtown, hired a marketing team, and began building her app from my stolen source code. I monitored her progress through LinkedIn updates and industry newsletters. Photos showed her in startup founder mode. Casual clothes, expensive laptop, inspiration quotes on office walls. She gave interviews about identifying market opportunities and turning vision into reality. The irony was perfect. While she played entrepreneur on social media, her developers struggled with my code. They didn't understand the database architecture I'd designed, the security protocols I'd implemented, or the user experience logic I'd carefully crafted. Through professional networks, I heard whispers of development problems, bugs in the notification system, database crashes during load testing, user interface glitches that frustrated beta testers. Victoria's team was trying to build on a foundation they didn't understand, using blueprints they couldn't read. My code was solid, but without the creator's knowledge, modifications became dangerous. I watched their struggles with satisfied patience, knowing the perfect moment for revelation was approaching. Victoria's public beta launch was a catastrophe. The app crashed within hours, overwhelming servers with error messages. User complaints flooded social media as basic features failed spectacularly. TaskFlow more like TaskSlow, tweeted one frustrated user. Can't even create a project without the app freezing. Behind the scenes, Victoria's team panicked. They'd built on my foundation without understanding load balancing, error handling, or scalability planning. My original code worked perfectly for small groups, but their modifications had created critical vulnerabilities. "We need the original developer," I overheard one of her programmers tell a friend at a tech meetup. "Whoever built this initial framework was brilliant, but we can't figure out how they implemented the core functions." Victoria began reaching out to former Pinnacle Tech colleagues, desperately seeking anyone who might know about TaskFlow's previous iterations. She was fishing for information about my involvement without directly admitting the theft. Through professional contacts, I learned that small business owners were angry about the failed launch. They'd been excited about affordable project management software, only to receive a broken, unusable product. My stolen work was failing because it had been stolen inappropriately. TechCrunch picked up the story. TaskFlow startup faces major technical challenges after promising launch. The article detailed server failures, user complaints, and investor concerns about Victoria's ability to deliver on her promises. Victoria scrambled to control the narrative, giving interviews about normal startup growing pains and temporary technical adjustments. She blamed the problems on scaling issues and promised rapid solutions. "Every successful startup faces challenges," she told a local business journal. What matters is how quickly we adapt and overcome obstacles. But investors were getting nervous. Harrison Blake publicly expressed concerns about technical execution and demanded detailed progress reports. Other funders began asking pointed questions about Victoria's development timeline and team qualifications. The beautiful part was watching Victoria try to explain technical problems she didn't understand. When reporters asked about specific features or architectural decisions, she gave vague, buzzword-filled answers that revealed her ignorance. My fellow developers shared the articles with growing skepticism. How did someone with no coding background get funding for a technical product? Asked my former classmate. Good question, I replied, checking my evidence files one more time. Desperate to save her startup, Victoria hired external consultants to audit TaskFlow's codebase. She needed to understand why her $2.5 million app kept failing at basic functions. The consulting firm's preliminary report was damning. The original architecture demonstrates exceptional skill and innovation, but subsequent modifications show fundamental misunderstanding of the system's design principles. Translation: whoever built the foundation knew what they were doing, but Victoria's team was clueless. We recommend identifying the original developer for consultation, the report continued. The core framework represents months of specialized knowledge that cannot be easily reverse-engineered. Victoria's panic deepened. She'd burned bridges at Pinnacle Tech and couldn't admit to stealing someone else's work. How could she find the original developer without revealing her theft? Meanwhile, I received an interesting LinkedIn message from one of the consultants. We're investigating a remarkable codebase with innovative productivity features. Your background suggests you might have insights into workflow optimization development. Would you be interested in consultation work? The trap was set. Victoria's own investigation was leading directly to me. I scheduled a meeting for the following week. I walked into Victoria's sleek startup office carrying my laptop and wearing professional attire. The consulting team's eyes lit up as they saw someone who actually understood software architecture and business productivity. Jamie Thompson. I introduced myself professionally. I understand you need consultation on productivity software development. Victoria's face went pale. She hadn't expected me to respond to the consultant's outreach, and seeing me in her office made her theft suddenly very real. Let's examine the codebase, I said, settling at their conference table. For the next hour, I examined my own stolen work displayed on their monitors. I pointed out architectural decisions, explained security implementations, and identified the source of their persistent bugs, all while Victoria squirmed in her chair. This is exceptional work, the lead consultant marveled. Whoever designed this really understood both technical requirements and business workflows. Yes, I agreed calmly. They certainly did. Victoria tried to interject, claiming ownership of various features, but I systematically corrected her technical misunderstandings. It became increasingly obvious that she had no idea how her own app supposedly worked. I'd like to propose a solution, I told the consulting team, ignoring Victoria's desperate stare. The original developer clearly understood both technical architecture and business needs. Have you considered that they might still be available? We've been trying to identify them, the consultant replied. Ms. Sterling has been unclear about the development history. I opened my laptop and pulled up documentation that made Victoria's eyes widen with recognition. My original project files, development notes, and design sketches, all time-stamped months before her first presentation. These look remarkably similar to your current codebase, I observed innocently, almost like someone built directly on this foundation. The consultants leaned forward, studying my screens. The similarity was undeniable, because it was identical code with minor modifications. Where did you get these files? Victoria finally found her voice, though it came out as a strangled whisper. I created them, I replied simply. This is my work. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Victoria had hired consultants to fix problems in stolen code, and those consultants had unknowingly contacted the original creator. I think we need to have a more detailed conversation, the lead consultant said carefully. After the consultants left for a brief recess, Victoria and I sat alone in her glass-walled conference room. Her startup's inspirational posters mocked us from the walls. Innovation, integrity, success. Jamie, I can explain, she began, her confident facade cracking. Explain what? How you stole my source code. How you presented my ideas as your own. How you convinced investors to fund my innovation while claiming you created it. She tried to salvage the situation. We collaborated on those early concepts. It was a team effort. You can't claim sole ownership of ideas we developed together. I pulled out printed copies of our Slack conversations, highlighting her dismissive responses to my proposals. Here's where you called my app overly complex. Here's where you said productivity software was crowded market. And here's where you suggested I focus on simpler projects. Her face flushed red. Those were just initial reactions. I came to appreciate the concept's potential. After you stole it, I improved on your basic framework. I added features, secured funding, built a team. You had a hobby project. I created a real business. I appreciated her tactical boldness. Even while despising her strategic dishonesty, she was trying to reframe theft as collaboration, plagiarism as improvement. Victoria, I said quietly, you're about to learn the difference between code and competence. I methodically laid out my documentation like a professional presentation. First, the timeline, my original concept notes from 2 years ago, my weekend coding sessions, my beta testing with friends. Then the technical proof, GitHub commits, code repositories, version histories. This video shows me demonstrating the working prototype to my college roommate 18 months ago. I said, playing the recording on my laptop. Notice the timestamp and the features that match your current app exactly. Victoria watched herself being exposed in real time. Every feature she'd claimed as her innovation appeared in my earlier work, documented and verified beyond dispute. Here are the email drafts where I outlined the business plan 8 months before your first presentation. I continued. Here's my market research among freelance professionals. Here's my technical architecture diagram. The same one your consultants are trying to understand. The evidence was overwhelming and irrefutable. I'd built an airtight case using the same attention to detail that had earned me straight A's in computer science. What do you want? Victoria finally asked, her voice barely audible. Justice, I replied. And my intellectual property back. I gathered my papers and stood to leave. Your product launch is next week, isn't it? I'll be there. The next week was pure strategic planning. I organized my evidence into presentation folders, prepared backup copies of all documentation, and contacted key stakeholders who needed to know the truth. Harrison Blake, the lead investor, received a formal letter requesting a meeting to discuss material misrepresentations regarding TaskFlow's development. I included enough evidence to prove I wasn't a disgruntled employee or delusional competitor. I was the legitimate creator. This is very concerning, he replied within hours. Can we meet before the product launch? I also reached out to the small business communities Victoria claimed to serve. Through professional networks, I connected with freelance organizations, startup groups, and productivity experts. They deserve to know who really created the software designed to help them. My former professor provided a character reference letter, confirming my development skills and innovative thinking. Jamie's technical abilities and creative problem-solving are exceptional, she wrote. Meanwhile, Victoria's team scrambled to fix their technical problems before the public launch. Every day brought new crashes, security vulnerabilities, and user complaints. They were building on quicksand. My stolen foundation undermined by their incompetent modifications. Harrison Blake's conference room felt like a courtroom as I presented my case. The venture capitalist studied my evidence with growing alarm, realizing his $2.5 million investment was built on fraud. These timestamps clearly predate Ms. Sterling's presentations, he said, examining my original files. This GitHub repository shows continuous development for over 2 years. I walked him through the technical architecture, explaining design decisions only the original creator could know. When he asked about specific algorithm implementations, I provided detailed explanations that Victoria had never understood. The productivity algorithms were inspired by my experience managing group projects in college, I explained. The time tracking features address workflow issues I witnessed in previous jobs. These aren't generic solutions, they're targeted innovations born from personal experience with productivity challenges. Harrison's expression darkened as he realized the implications. Miss Sterling has no formal technical background, does she?
No.
She's never written production code or managed software development projects. He closed the evidence folder and looked at me directly. What outcome are you seeking, Miss Thompson? Recognition as the rightful creator and compensation for the theft of my intellectual property, plus assurance that small businesses will receive the quality software they deserve, not a broken knockoff. Word of my meeting with Harrison Blake reached other INV. Victoria's funding consortium requested an emergency review of TaskFlow's development history, and panic spread through her startup's offices. We need to talk, Victoria texted me desperately. Let's work this out privately. But privacy was no longer an option. The developer community had rallied around my story, sharing it through professional networks and social media. #code theft began trending as programmers and tech workers demanded accountability for intellectual property violations. My former colleagues at Pinnacle Tech reached out with support and additional evidence. We always wondered how Victoria suddenly became a coding expert, one developer confided. Your explanation makes everything clear. Even Victoria's own team members began questioning her story. The consultants had shared their findings, revealing the technical skill gap between the original code and recent modifications. Smart developers could see that Victoria lacked the expertise to create what she claimed. The product launch was 3 days away, but Victoria's house of lies was crumbling faster than her buggy app. Investors threatened to withdraw funding, employees updated their resumes, and the tech media sensed a developing scandal. TechCrunch broke the story Tuesday morning. Developer claims startup founder stole productivity app code. The article detailed my evidence, Victoria's denials, and the investors' growing concerns about fraud. Jamie Thompson has provided compelling documentation that TaskFlow's core technology was developed independently over 2 years, the reporter wrote. Sterling's company has yet to provide convincing evidence of original development. By noon, the story had exploded across social media. Developer communities shared it thousands of times, productivity experts issued statements of support, and tech industry watchdogs demanded investigation of startup due diligence failures. Victoria tried damage control with a hastily written blog post claiming collaborative development and shared intellectual property. But her technical explanations were laughably vague, while mine had been precise and verifiable. This is exactly why we need better protections for independent developers, tweeted the Women in Tech Coalition. Creators work hard enough without having their innovations stolen by opportunistic colleagues. The narrative was turning decisively against Victoria. She'd positioned herself as an innovative entrepreneur, while actually exploiting a colleague's work for personal gain. 2 days before the product launch, Victoria's world collapsed. Harrison Blake and 3 other major investors withdrew their funding, citing material misrepresentations and potential intellectual property violations. Without investor support, TaskFlow's staff abandoned ship. Developers deleted company files and updated LinkedIn profiles, distancing themselves from the scandal. The marketing team canceled promotional events, and the office landlord worried about unpaid rent. Jamie, please, Victoria called me, sobbing into the phone. I'll give you credit. We can be co-founders. Just don't destroy everything I've built. You built nothing, I replied firmly. You stole everything. I'll lose my apartment, my car, my reputation. People will think I'm a fraud. People will think correctly. That evening, my computer science alumni group gathered for an impromptu celebration at a local tech cafe. Word had spread through developer communities about a programmer who'd stood up to corporate fraud and won. Coders I'd never met bought me coffee and shared their own stories of idea theft. You did something important, my former professor told me. You showed that technical innovation matters and developers won't be victims of exploitation. Tomorrow's product launch would be Victoria's final humiliation. The Riverside Conference Center buzzed with tension as Victoria's product launch began. Media representatives, potential customers, and curious onlookers filled the auditorium, many having read about the intellectual property controversy. I sat in the back row, my evidence folder ready and my laptop charged. Around me, small business owners and productivity experts waited to see how Victoria would address the theft allegations. She took the stage looking exhausted, her usual confidence replaced by nervous energy. "Welcome to the TaskFlow launch," she began shakily. "I'm excited to share innovative technology designed to serve our business community." The presentation was a disaster from the first slide. Every feature she demonstrated I had created. Every benefit she promised I had designed. Every workflow insight she shared I had researched among real small business owners. Halfway through her demo, the app crashed spectacularly. Error messages flooded the screen as her innovative technology failed in front of hundreds of witnesses. "Technical difficulties," Victoria stammered, frantically clicking buttons that accomplished nothing. From the back row, I raised my hand. "I can fix that," I called out clearly. All eyes turned to me as I stood with my laptop. "I'm Jamie Thompson, the actual creator of TaskFlow," I announced to the stunned audience. Murmurs rippled through the crowd as I walked to the front, carrying my evidence folder. Victoria stepped back from the podium, her face pale with defeat. 2 years ago, I began developing software to solve productivity challenges I'd experienced in college and work. I explained, connecting my laptop to the projection system. "This is the original working version." My app loaded flawlessly, displaying the clean interface and robust functionality Victoria's team had never achieved. I demonstrated features she claimed as innovations, explained algorithms she'd never understood, and showed the user experience I'd carefully crafted for busy professionals. Every line of code, every design decision, every feature you just saw Ms. Sterling present, I created during nights and weekends while working full-time. I continued. "This is what stolen innovation looks like." The audience sat in shocked silence as the full scope of Victoria's fraud became clear. She'd stolen not just code, but the hopes and needs of small business owners I'd worked to serve. "Small businesses deserve better than fraud disguised as innovation," I concluded. For the next 20 minutes, I systematically destroyed Victoria's credibility, using the same evidence I'd shown investors. GitHub repositories, development timestamps, beta testing videos, and technical documentation painted an undeniable picture of theft. "Here's my original app helping a freelance designer manage client projects," I said, playing a video testimonial from 10 months ago. "Here's my code repository showing continuous development for 2 years. Here's my professor confirming my technical capabilities and project work." Each piece of evidence hammered another nail into Victoria's professional coffin. The audience of potential customers, investors, and media representatives watched a real-time exposure of startup fraud. "Any questions?" I asked the stunned crowd. A reporter raised her hand. "Ms. Sterling, how do you respond to this evidence?" Victoria remained frozen at the side of the stage, unable to formulate any defense. Her lies had been demolished by facts, her claims destroyed by documentation. "I think Ms. Sterling's silence speaks for itself," I said diplomatically. Small business owners deserve authentic solutions from people who understand productivity challenges, not exploitation from those who steal innovations. The applause was thunderous as entrepreneurs and business owners in the audience rose to their feet. Within hours, the product launch disaster had gone viral. #TaskFlow fraud trended nationally as video clips of my revelation spread across social media platforms. Developer communities, business organizations, and tech industry leaders shared the story as an example of exploitation and justice. Victoria fled the conference center in humiliation. Her startup dreams shattered beyond repair. Her social media accounts went dark, her LinkedIn profile disappeared, and her professional reputation evaporated overnight. Harrison Blake issued a public statement apologizing for the due diligence failure and announcing his intention to pursue legal remedies against Victoria for investor fraud. "We were deceived by misrepresentations and will take appropriate action to recover our investment." Other investors followed suit, threatening lawsuits for the return of their funding. Victoria's brief reign as a tech entrepreneur ended in legal threats and financial ruin. Meanwhile, my phone rang constantly with offers from legitimate investors, business organizations, and tech companies interested in supporting the real TaskFlow. The exposure had transformed a stolen idea into a genuinely supported innovation. Justice served, texted my former professor. Now let's build something amazing for small businesses. 3 months later, I stood on a different stage in the same conference center, wearing professional attire and preparing to launch the legitimate TaskFlow. This time, the audience included genuine business supporters, ethical investors, and small business owners who'd followed my story. TaskFlow was born from personal experience. I began confidently. As a computer science graduate and working professional, I saw inefficiencies that existing software wasn't addressing. Today, we're officially launching a platform built by developers, for business users, with authentic understanding of productivity challenges. The real app worked flawlessly, demonstrating features that actually helped small business owners instead of exploiting their struggles. Freelancers shared testimonials, startup founders showed productivity improvements, and business consultants discussed integration opportunities. Harrison Blake, now properly invested in my legitimate company, introduced the funding consortium that would support TaskFlow's growth. This is how innovation should work, he told the audience. Authentic expertise, honest development, and genuine commitment to serving the business community. The contrast with Victoria's fraudulent launch couldn't have been clearer. Real innovation attracted real support, while stolen ideas created only temporary illusions. 6 months after Victoria's humiliation, TaskFlow had processed over 15,000 business productivity requests and helped small companies streamline their operations. The app I'd built during nights and weekends was finally serving the community I'd designed it for. Victoria had disappeared from the tech industry entirely, her reputation destroyed beyond recovery. Legal proceedings continued as investors sought restitution, but her personal assets were minimal. The consequences of fraud proved more devastating than any revenge I could have planned. My programming career actually benefited from the exposure. Tech companies recognized my innovation and problem-solving skills, leading to multiple job offers and consulting opportunities. Other developers reached out with their own app ideas, creating a network of ethical innovators. More importantly, small business organizations reported measurable improvements in productivity outcomes. The app was actually helping people, fulfilling the mission I'd originally envisioned during those late-night coding sessions. You proved that competence beats deception, my former professor observed during a follow-up meeting. But more than that, you showed how technical skills create lasting success when applied ethically. Today, TaskFlow serves over 40,000 small businesses across multiple industries. The platform has expanded beyond my original vision, incorporating user feedback and business expertise to address evolving productivity needs. Victoria's name is occasionally mentioned in tech industry discussions about due diligence failures and startup fraud, but she's become a cautionary tale rather than a successful entrepreneur. Her attempt to profit from stolen code serves as a warning about ethical shortcuts in business. I've spoken at multiple conferences about protecting intellectual property and supporting independent developers. The story resonates beyond tech communities, inspiring other professionals to document their work and stand up against exploitation. The real victory wasn't destroying Victoria's career. It was building something meaningful from authentic expertise. Programming skills taught me that sustainable success requires genuine competence, not fraudulent shortcuts. TaskFlow continues growing because it's built on real understanding of business needs, not stolen concepts marketed to investors. Small business owners trust the platform because they know it comes from someone who shares their productivity challenges. Sometimes the best revenge is simply doing the work correctly, letting authentic innovation triumph over convenient theft. Technical precision applied to real problems creates something no amount of fraud can duplicate. The app Victoria stole was just code. The business I built serves forever. If this story moved you, don't forget to like the video, subscribe for more powerful narratives, and share your thoughts in the comments. We'd love to hear what part hit you the hardest. Thanks for watching.